rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
Good morning and welcome to Thursday's edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Please follow us on all social media, The Carl Jackson Show. We're on Getter, Twitter, Instagram, Truth Social, Facebook, you name it. Also subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Carl Jackson Show on YouTube. We're also on Rumble if you prefer Rumble, The Carl Jackson Show on Rumble as well. Guys, today's podcast in part is brought to you by Big George Foreman. That's right. From Affirm Films comes Big George Foreman, the miraculous story of the once and future heavyweight champion of the world, based on the true story of one of the greatest comebacks of all time and a transformational power of second chances. All right, Big George Foreman, starring Chris Davis and Academy Award winner Forrest Whitaker, is rated PG-13. It may be inappropriate for audiences under 12 or under 13 years of age. It's only in theaters beginning April 28th. For tickets and showtimes, go to BigGeorgeForeman.movie, BigGeorgeForeman.movie. I've got some great topics to discuss, including this case with Andrew Lester, the 84-year-old that has now been released on bail for shooting Ralph Yarl, a young black man. At least that's the way the story goes. The left is trying to make it a racial issue. I'm going to give you my take on this, which I guarantee you will be like none that you've heard thus far. This is a Carl Jackson Show podcast. Please stay tuned for some quick program messaging, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Guys, I want to talk about this story real quickly, and I've got several things that I want to talk about. Obviously, I'm going to talk about Andrew Lester being released from jail and the shooting of Ralph Yarl, the IRS whistleblower that says the Biden administration is interfering in the Hunter tax fraud probe. Also, John Fetterman isn't fit to serve in the Senate. I want to talk about that. Speaker McCarthy releases a proposal to avoid a debt ceiling. I'm not going to say it's a crisis. I don't believe it's a crisis. Frankly, I'm tired of playing these games. I know many people will disagree with me, including colleagues of mine. That's absolutely fine. This is America. So I'm cool with that. Biden looks to punish those with good credit scores by making them fund high risk mortgages. This is a really, really important story. This is straight up communist, and I want to get into that as well. But first, let me do this. I want to find this story of this guy, Andrew Lester. All right, so Andrew Lester, this hat tip to the New York Post. Andrew Lester was released on bail after his arrest in the Ralph Yarl shooting. All right, so for those of you that don't know the story, this is being framed as a racial issue, despite the fact that there was a young lady by the name of Kaylin Gillis that was shot and killed in the very same manner Ralph Yarl was shot. But fortunately, Ralph Yarl was not killed. He sounds like a fabulous young man. Benjamin Crump is out already trying to racialize this. Actually, he's not trying to. He already has, because that's what he does. And I think I'm going to have a bit of a different take on this. So please stay tuned for this. However, let me just brief you on the story if you're unfamiliar with it. So you have an octogenarian charged with shooting a 16-year-old boy. Andrew Lester is the alleged suspect. He is 84 years of age. The story goes on to say he shot the boy at his front door. After the teen rang his doorbell, he was arrested and now released on bail. Kansas City police said Andrew Lester turned himself in on Tuesday. This was about 5 days after he shot Yarl in the head and arm outside of his Missouri home. Again, this is Kansas City, Missouri. So the Clay County Prosecutor's Office has charged the man with first-degree assault and armed criminal action on Monday with an arrest warrant issued shortly afterwards. He was taken to the Clay County Detention Center Tuesday and then was released shortly after on a $200,000 bond. According to the probable cause affidavit, Andrew Lester, the 84-year-old, told police he was going to bed when the young man, Yarl, rang his doorbell on Thursday night, alarming the man, 84-year-old man. His doorbell was rang on Thursday night. That's very important information. He claimed he was scared to death, quote unquote, thinking someone was trying to break into his home when he fired at Yarl, who he described as a, quote, black male, approximately 6 feet tall, pulling on the storm door handle, close quote. Don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, I think that is a very important detail as well. Yarl, however, maintains that he never touched the door and was outside the home to pick up his younger brothers who were waiting for him at a nearby address. Apparently, the story is that that Ralph Yarl got the addresses mixed up. He was supposed to go the opposite direction to another. I don't remember the streets. All right. It was like a 15th Avenue or 15th something or another. Yarl told police he was instantly shot in the head. And when he fell to the ground, Lester shot him in the arm. And again, this kid looking at him looks like a good kid. But then we find out he is. Yarl claimed Lester warned, "Don't come around here," as he fled, fearing he would be shot yet again. The teen was discharged from the hospital days later, and his mother says, honestly, that "don't come around here again," that I think that's important too. The teen was discharged from the hospital days later, and his mother says he does little but cry in bed thinking about the shooting. Now, listen, this is a mother. She's going to be emotional. His aunt has come out. I did not watch the video, but from what I'm told, his aunt came out and said that author Andrew Lester looked Ralph Yarl in the face, in the eyes, and then proceeded to shoot him. She has no idea. She wasn't there. And sometimes in a situation like that, especially when you're scared, you can see things and view things differently. I have been the victim of 2 violent crimes. I wasn't shot, thank God. I did have a .38 special pointed to my head at one point in time. I can tell you oftentimes you do remember things in great detail and specificity, but this would be true for Andrew Lester as well. Now, this is an 84-year-old man. Now, I do want to finish up this story because I do think it's very important. The teen, this isn't a bad kid. This kid, Ralph Yarl, but his mother, understandably so, is emotional. His aunt, understandably so, is emotional. And sadly, whenever there's a situation where a white man is involved in shooting a black kid or some type of harm is done, it's going to make national news. Why? Because that's the narrative that the mainstream media, that's the narrative that the Democrat Party wants, and that's the narrative that they want to use all the way headed into 2024, because the narrative is that America is racist. The narrative is that any white man is racist, particularly when he, even if in his own mind he's defending himself, if he happens to be white and you happen to defend yourself against a black kid. Now, I don't know if it's a case of self-defense. I don't know if it's a case of racism. I doubt that it is, but here's what I would have to say. I really abhor all of these cases that are played out in the media, and because they do nothing but destroy the justice system for not only for the alleged suspect and alleged victim, but also for you and I. I think our justice system has gone to crap as a result of many cases playing out in the political sphere. I don't believe that cases should be shown on television. I think that is a very, very bad idea. Or I should say this, leading up to trial, I don't believe cases should be shown on television like this. All right, before they get inside of a courtroom. Once a court hearing starts, it's a different story. But even then, I'm skeptical of that. I'm very skeptical of that because I think there are so many outside pressures with the advent of social media and all this that will tend to sway jurors. And I'm a human being, and you're a human being, right? If you're listening to this podcast, right? So that we know that humans can be swayed, humans can be persuaded. And honestly, the only way jurors should serve on trials like this is a TV should be taken from their rooms. Their phones should be taken from them, and they should be entertained I don't know, if they get involved in big cases like this, they should be entertained by books, or different field trips, or entertainment within a resort or hotel or wherever they're held up. But they should not be allowed to view news at all. And I know that's usually the instructions, but please, human nature and cell phones make that extremely hard to do. But we destroy the justice system. Why do I say that? Carl, why are you saying that we're destroying the justice system by playing this trial out? The trial hasn't even started yet, but you already have Benjamin Crump involved. You already have this guy Andrew Lester being called a racist. You already have emotions running high in this nation that has been stoked racially by the domestic terrorists, BLM and Antifa, and by the racists that you often see in mainstream media. In my opinion, you can turn on CNN, MSNBC. You can see the Don Lemons. You can see the Joy Reids of the world. You can see the ladies of the View that get a pass for saying racist stuff, not racial, racist stuff, simply because they're in the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party, the founders of the KKK, the people of the party that fought against the civil rights movement in America until it became politically expedient, and they realized they were losing their grip on power, so they decided to pretend like they were for blacks all along. Meanwhile, they destroyed the black and minority families by promulgating welfare in largely black communities, so that Uncle Sam would become the daddy of black babies. And that's exactly what they've done. It's sad, and many people fall for this nonsense, and they really think the Democrat Party is out to help them. All right. Now, having said that, getting back to this issue, this guy, Andrew Lester, will never get a fair trial. He will never get a fair trial, because you know what will happen. Big Perm Al Sharpton and Benjamin Crump will descend down on Kansas City, Missouri, put a lot of pressure on the prosecutor, put a lot of pressure on jurors. They'll make a big deal of this trial. This trial should be set back to after 2024, after the 2024 election. If I'm Andrew Lester and he's 84 years old, he may die before then. I would make sure that this trial does not go to trial with an attorney until after the election of 2024. As a matter of fact, I would probably hold the trial the day after the election if I could. I mean, I get that thing scheduled afterwards, because nothing good is going to come from this trial. They will literally lynch this man, Andrew Lester, and I don't know that he shouldn't be. But they don't either. And that is the point. These trials should never, whether it is Casey Anthony, that trial, all of these trials all of these crimes that will lead up to a trial, and you have media reporting all over them, just destroying the jury pool. Destroying the jury pool before an actual jury can get inside of a courtroom, destroying people's opinions or persuading people a certain way. It just destroys our jury system. So again, 84-year-old man shoots this young kid, and I think this is dangerous. So again, Yari claimed Lester warned, "Don't come around here," as he fled, fearing he would be shot again. The teen was discharged from the hospital days later, thank God. And his mother says he does little but cry in bed. All right, at this point. Thinking about the shooting, Lester's arrest also came following days of protests and outcry. What did I tell you? What did I tell you? See, in a normal situation, in a healthy justice system, you have a perpetrator that is innocent until proven guilty. So at the time, the investigators or police department, whomever, who investigated this initially did not see reason to press charges. And it's not because they're racist. It's because they didn't see reason to press charges. You have an 84-year-old man. You have a young man that comes to his door at night. The guy is getting ready for bed, and it's very understandable that he would freak out, especially if he's watching CNN, MSNBC, and they are watching, and he happens to be watching how they prosecute white men on television all the time if there's anything involved with black people or black kids. All right. So now, who is Yarl? Ralph Yarl. This is very important to know. The Black Missouri teen is one of the top bass clarinet players in Missouri. He's got to be a bright young kid. This, according to his family. The 16-year-old is also part of his school's Technology Student Association and Science Olympiad team. Why was he shot? Now, of course, this is in the New York Post, Yarl was shot in the head after he rang the wrong doorbell while trying to pick up his twin brothers at a home in Kansas City, Missouri. Police said Yarl sustained life-threatening injuries when he was shot, and hundreds again of protesters rallied after the gunman, 84-year-old Andrew Lester, was initially released. The teen's aunt talked about the terrifying incident on a GoFundMe page. That page has raised, this was as of last night, $900,000. I'm sure it surpassed that. What could happen to Lester, Andrew Lester, the 84-year-old? The homeowner could spend the rest of his life in jail after prosecutors charged him with 2 felony counts. Now, here's what I want you to listen to. Lester was charged with assault in the first degree and armed criminal action for the shooting, which had a racial component. Why did they do that? I guarantee you these punk behind people in the prosecutor's office in Clay County did this because of the protests. I'm sorry. Actually, let me just say this. All right. It is my opinion. It is my opinion that is exactly why they added this charge, which had a racial component. How the hell do you prove a man is racist or a man did it out of race? 84-year-old man, somebody knocking at his door at night, 84 years old. You don't know if this guy has Parkinson's disease. You don't know if this guy has any symptoms of dementia. You don't know if this guy sees hallucinations, for all you know, because anyone with a modicum of common sense that you do 5 minutes of research, if you have older people that are experiencing some dementia or particularly Parkinson's disease, some people will suffer with hallucinations. And sadly, I know this because I happen to have a dad and mother-in-law that suffer with this type of stuff. And it's horrible, especially with my dad. As he gets older, he experiences, and I'm getting a little personal here. And I got to take a breath, make sure I don't cry. All right. But, with my dad, and he suffers from Parkinson's at this stage in his life. And as a result of the Parkinson's, he sees things that you and I won't see. And that's not all the time. But sometimes it freaks him the crap out, especially if he's not on medications. So you guys just don't understand. We don't understand the entirety of this case. And it is sad to me, and it's unfortunate that you have these race hustlers like Benjamin Crump that come in because all they want is a paycheck. If Benjamin Crump was a sincere human being, he would be finding out about this Kaylin Gillis, who was shot inside of someone's driveway. Apparently, she had gone to the wrong house herself. She was sat in the driveway of someone's home, getting directions off of her phone, trying to find the right place when someone came out and shot her and unfortunately killed her because that person was scared. And this is the society that we live in today, thanks to the lockdowns imposed by Democrats. And thanks to these soft on crime DAs everywhere, where people feel like they have to be up at arms because you don't have law enforcement that will do anything. Gabe, I kind of screwed up because now that I'm talking about this, I'd rather play that other video of the couple that were attacked in Chicago. So if you hear me now, would you please switch that up? And I really do apologize for that. And you just let me know when you have that ready. I had John Fetterman set to go, or Gabe did, but I want to switch it up based upon what I'm talking about here, because I think this is extremely important. Guys, we've got to stop listening to these people that will find guilt. In America, you're innocent until proven guilty. I'll be frank with you. This is going to sound really mean. But I expect Ralph Yarl's parents to react. I don't want them reacting in the media. Frankly, I don't. When it comes to prosecuting a crime, I don't care about the emotions. I care about the law. I care about the rule of law. I understand and that there are going to be emotions involved. There should be. Ralph Yarl was shot unnecessarily so, apparently, allegedly. And so I understand why his mom would be upset. I understand why his aunt would be upset. But you have a Democrat Party that says everything is racist. before you even hear any facts, before you know the entirety of the situation, everything is racist. A white old man in Kansas City, Missouri, shoots a young black boy that's knocking on at his door while he's getting ready for bed at night. That's going to freak some old people out. If you were 84 years old, I would say that it would freak you out. But I know we can't speak the truth anymore. But I've had it with these cases being played out in the media before these people could ever get inside of a courtroom. Mark my words, Andrew Lester, if this case goes to trial, will not get a fair trial. You heard it here first. He will not get a fair trial because the jurors will be bullied. The prosecutor, in my opinion, has already been bullied. And so they're going to do exactly what Benjamin Crump wants and what Al Sharpton wants in order to appease these radical revolutionaries on the left and these black Marxists that are interested in earning a paycheck that has to keep this America's racist gravy train going. It's astonishing to me. It's astonishing to me. But this is where we're headed. Let me just wrap up. All right. So the homeowner could spend the rest of his life in jail. Lester was charged with assault. All right. I already read that with a racial component. The charges carry 10 to 30 years behind bars or life in prison. Prosecutor said, the guy isn't going to live much longer, for God's sakes. The 2 felony charges facing Lester, again, carry 10 to 30 years or life in prison. This according to a probable cause affidavit. Lester claimed he was defending himself, which will play into Missouri's stand your ground law. According to now, and listen, you have to believe that your life is in danger. If he legitimately believed that his life was in danger, and again, Ralph Yarl, this kid, all indications are this is a good kid. For God's sakes, he was going to pick up his little brother. But can I use a word that we don't use anymore? And it really sounds heinous. I understand, and I'm not trying to minimize this case. The word accident. Do accidents still happen in America? Do those things still occur? Absolutely fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating to me. All right. So I'm sorry, I'm reading from my notes. I actually had a totally different show prepared for you guys today, but we had a guest that canceled out. So hopefully we'll have that guest on at another time. So according to the state self-defense law, a person may use physical and deadly force against another if they have a reason to believe that such force is necessary to protect, quote, against death, serious physical injury, or any forcible felony, close quote. I'd like to know how many people have come to Andrew Lester's door and knocked on it at night or rang his doorbell at night. Contractors, roofers don't even do that. So I'd like to know how many people have done that in the past. How is he expected to act? Listen, I'll be frank with you, and this is just my opinion. I think this is an accident, a terrible tragedy, but an accident. I know we're not allowed to have accidents anymore in this social justice America, but it sounds like a horrible tragedy and a bad accident. It sounds like a man that overreacted because he panicked because someone was knocking at his door or ringing his doorbell at night as he was getting ready to go to bed. And since he's 84 years old, and since he cannot defend himself physically, and then he goes to the door, he sees this young man. He's probably watched the videos of the Chicago teens, going buck wild, or and not necessarily just last weekend. Who knows? And he's just freaked out. Nobody's ever come to my door at night. Who's this knocking at my door? It's not the cops. There's not a cop car out there. There isn't a man in uniform. Who is this trying to get in my door at night? But he won't get a fair trial. I'm just warning you right now. He won't get a fair trial because the media and Ben Crump has already found him to be a racist and has already found him to be guilty. And you can look at both of the pictures online. And again, both of these people, the young man looks like an outstanding, or sound by all indications is an outstanding young man. And then you can look at the gentleman, Andrew Lester, that did the shooting. This guy doesn't look like a threat at all. he does look like somebody that might be terrified. But that's just me going based upon look. So Missouri's castle doctrine specifically allows such action to be used in a person's home, which will likely play into the case as Lester was inside his house when he fired at Yarl, who was standing outside. Now, understand this too, and I'm looking at the house. I'm looking at the porch. It remains to be seen if Lester will be able to argue that he faced a legitimate threat when Yarl rang his doorbell. Now, I don't know if this is the case, but in some jurisdictions, I believe that's the case. This is the case in Florida. Don't quote me on this, but as long as a person is underneath an awning or anything of your house. So if they're over your front door, in front of your front door, and there's an overhang, you're technically allowed to defend yourself at that point. You have to check that state by state. All right. So check me on that. Do not take my word for that. But anyway, again, it sounds like a terrible accident. This 84-year-old man freaking out. God knows if anyone ever came to his door at night before ringing his doorbell. God knows if he has dementia, or if he has Parkinson's disease, in which it's very common to see hallucinations and to freak out and panic. God only knows. All right. And he's apparently living at home by himself. All right. So just very important. Keep that in mind. All right. Now, I want to move on to this. We're not going to play this video long. Gabe, I hope you hear me, Gabe. Let's go ahead and roll this video of John Fetterman. I actually wanted to roll the Chicago one first, but since Gabe has this set up, we'll go back. We'll start with this and just circle back. So, Gabe, if you hear me, let's go ahead and roll this video, please.
Thank you very much. Thank all of you. And now we'll now begin the 5-minute rounds of questions for each member. And I will begin with my own now. Mrs. Cox. Currently, states allow SNAP mostly to do what they fit. I'm concerned about proposals to limit this. My own state of Pennsylvania has the ability to seek waivers on work requirements and times, and depending on employment metrics. This also includes tools to ensure that low-wage working household avoiding a benefit cliff. Can you possibly explain the potential impact if these proposals would have on states?
Yes, thank you for the question. So when we think about the waivers, I think while unemployment has come down across the country, there are still areas that have higher unemployment. And so it can, and states have each state has experienced some crisis, whether it's a natural disaster, plant closing, some community conditions that have persistent high unemployment, specifically like in Native American communities. And so that means people can't find jobs where these waivers are needed. States can only request temporary waivers for areas with relatively high unemployment and a lack of sufficient jobs. And states are really in the best position to evaluate the needs of their communities. And so that's why it's really critical to maintain states' flexibility when you respond, so that they can respond to their community's needs. And then on the other hand, around flexibilities, for example, the asset limit, the broad-based categorical eligibility, a lot of states that have expanded the income limit, it's basically for working families. So families who are just above the poverty line, but because of high shelter or childcare costs, at the end of the day, they meet the eligibility for SNAP and they're able to receive benefits. So
I want you to listen to this lady, whether you disagree with the SNAP program, SNAP benefits or not, and just listen to how smart and fluid she sounds. And then we're going to get back to John Fetterman. Let me just say this from the onset, and I should have said this right from the beginning. I want you to notice, I want you to understand who the left is. John Fetterman shouldn't be anywhere near the Senate, let alone in the Senate. He is mentally incapable of serving his term as senator. I don't know. Frankly, and I don't know what the rules are. I don't know if the governor of Pennsylvania would have to would have to say there needs to be a special election, whatever it may be. I forget, frankly. But this guy shouldn't be in the Senate. He is mentally incapable. He is reading. He's not able to have his own thoughts. He is just reading. It's not like I'll look down on my notes to make sure that that something triggers where I can explain my points. All this guy can do is read, and you can tell that he can't comprehend well. And that's a result of his stroke. And he said as much in an interview, or in a couple of interviews at this point. But I know specifically an interview that I watched once he was released from the hospital. Gabe, let's go ahead and roll this tape, and then we'll wrap up this part. I don't want to stay here too long. I just want you to witness this lady, whether you agree with the SNAP program or not. Look at how lucid, look at how fluid, look at how smart she sounds, able to explain her points, and then listen to John Fetterman and just compare and contrast. Who would allow this man to be Senate? His wife is a disgrace. The Democrat Party is a disgrace. They knew that this man should not be in the Senate, but because they are so power hungry, they don't care who they use, because all John Fetterman is in Washington, D.C. to do is to be a rubber stamp for President President Joe Biden. That's all he's in Washington to do. All right, let's go ahead and roll the tape.
Taking that away, we saw when the Trump administration sought to pursue these reforms, it was going to estimate 3 million individuals were actually going to lose SNAP. So when you look at income, asset limits, so that mostly impacts older adults who have modest savings. So we would be asking them to not be able to have a savings in order to get SNAP. And so
isn't it amazing that they never talk
the
about
state's
the
flexibility
Democrat
is super
policies
important, because
that lead
states
to
are in a
welfare?
better position to tell what they need in their state.
They always have the answer: more government.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Cox.
Now listen to John Fetterman.
I'd actually have one more kind of a brief, another question, please. Many SNAP households have had benefits stolen through skimming. Victims face the serious challenge of losing their purchase power. When debit cards are skimmed, they are protections for the car holder. What needs can be done to ensure that families have that same kind of being protecting?
Right. So there's been a lot of skimming over the last few years. And so what's really important is that SNAP participants have the same consumer protections that everyone else has. If you have a debit or a credit card and you have protections for your purchases, the same should happen for EBT card users. I do want to say I appreciate the quick action of Congress to restore stolen benefits, and that's over the next year or so. But we really want to make sure that any new EBT protections and technology doesn't prevent participants from having access to their benefits. So I don't know if there's one particular solution. There may be a few. It could be chip card technology, improving the detection and elimination of some of the skimming devices that are in stores, training retailers. But ultimately, we want SNAP EBT card holders to not be treated any differently than other consumers in our, any less protections than other consumers. Thank you.
Mrs. Jones-Brown, food banks are really critical for the support foundation of SNAP. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
The Emergency Food Assistance Program, or TFAP, was established to provide emergency food assistance to low-income individuals. And these individuals may not qualify for SNAP, but they might need additional support. Food banks, like Phil Abundance, and knowing personally the kind of quality of the work that you do in my own state, they distribute 85% of TFAP foods nationwide. As Americans struggle with high food costs.
All right, I can't even watch anymore. This guy is leading this Senate hearing. He shouldn't even be in Congress. He should not be in the Senate. I say all this to say this is what the left does. They are very mean people, whether it is claiming that a man, Andrew Lester, is a racist and shot a young man simply because he was black, despite the fact they have not shared the information that Ralph Yarl, even though it was an accident, I believe, in my opinion, he's knocking on the door or guy's door at night while the guy is getting ready for bed. 84-year-old man that apparently lives alone is probably going to get freaked out, right? So they're not sharing any of this information because what the left wants is a narrative that a white man shot a black boy. And that's the way they're going to say it. They're going to be using the word boy a lot. Mark my words. Look out for that. Look out for that. And now on the left, because all they are interested in is power, right? They're going to allow John Fetterman to sit inside that Senate seat. And his staffers are basically going to run the show. It's as simple as that. Not the elected official. His staffers are. But Pennsylvanians, I guess, don't care. They chose him over a coherent Dr. Oz. So you know what? I hope you guys get what you voted for. Now, here's another story. I want you to understand. All right. So now I just want you to understand who the left is. All right. So they're stoking racial divisiveness with this Andrew Lester case and Ralph Yarl. They're willing to use a man that is clearly mentally incapable of being a senator just because they're power hungry, but they're also violent. They've got their brown shirts in action in the streets of Chicago and across the United States, where we're seeing more violence rise up in blue cities. There's this false narrative. And I'll speak to this more in depthly soon. There's this false narrative that red states are more violent than blue states. This is a lie that the left is starting to perpetuate. Guys, this is an outright lie. There's a study, and leftists, it's a left-wing think tank that is perpetuating this nonsense. And here's what they do. They compare blue city, CITY crime rates to red state crime rates. So statewide, that's the trick. Statewide crime rates compared to blue city crime rates. And so by tricking their voters, they want you to believe that red states are just as bad, if not more dangerous than blue states. And typically in the red states that did rank pretty high, because there were 30 cities, major cities that they looked at across the United States. Out of 30 cities, three were Republican. And actually one was independent. One was Las Vegas, ran by an independent. And then you had Lexington, Kentucky, I believe. And then Jacksonville was the other place. But you have Democrats believing that red states are just as violent, just as dangerous. And Democrats are spreading this lie, I guess, so they won't lose more residents, or so that they could try to take away from Republicans saying blue cities are dangerous cities. These people are just straight up liars. Now, they've also created these brown shirts, because what they do is they stoke the anger of young black men and women, telling them everyone is racist. And then as a result of telling them that everyone is racist, you get situations like this. This is a couple, an interracial couple that were visiting Chicago. They were downtown in the Loop area or in the Loop. I don't know how to frame it. I've never been to Chicago. Listen, I don't intend to ever. Unless I could carry, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. But this couple was attacked in Chicago, and I want you guys not only to listen to this couple. There's a black woman that stepped in to save this couple's life, and she's oblivious to the damage that the policies she voted for, she's oblivious to what they're causing. But I want you to pay attention, and she's a very nice lady, but politically completely oblivious. People on the right, I want you to understand this. Let's go ahead and roll this video,
Teens
Gabe.
Downtown on Saturday.
A key part of the story, the Good Samaritan who stepped in to help.
Anthony Pause is live with more tonight. Anthony?
Yes, Corey and Dawn, this the attack happened here on the 100 block of North Wabash Avenue Saturday night. It could have ended way worse had it not been for the intervention of a truly good Samaritan, who says that the video of this attack that went viral over the weekend really only captures the tail end of what she describes as an absolutely brutal attack. The victims here, a couple visiting from out of town. They're in their early 20s, staying in an Airbnb. They were out to dinner, just trying to enjoy their night.
We were just downtown in Chicago trying to shop, trying to get some food. And we were walking down the street, and there was a really big group of guys, a really big group of people.
And girls.
Yeah, guys and girls. And, DJ had my hand, and he was trying to lead me through the crowd of people. and they pushed him, they pushed me, and as soon as they pushed me, I told DJ, I said, hey, you know, they just shoved me.
The mob attack happened right near Macy's Wabash Street entrance.
And it was a mob of about 60 to 100 people.
You know, they said they're gonna kill us. They turned around and, you know, started fighting, you know.
They were shoeless. They didn't have they were looking for their phones, but it was no point because the phones had been taken away.
Both the victims and Lenora Dennis, the woman who came to their aid, say that several Chicago police officers passed by but did not intervene.
Cops drove right by it, act like they didn't see anything.
I literally went out into the street and stopped and held my hands up to a police car and asked them to stop and motioned them over to what was going on, and they just cut a path around me and just kept going.
She was eventually...
Let's stop the tape. Stop the tape. All right, so the police feel helpless. The police feel helpless. It is wrong, in my opinion. It is morally wrong to pass up a situation where you understand or you may see someone being assaulted. But I don't know how many, and I'm not offering any excuses, but I don't know how many times they saw that night. And I don't know, actually, I suspect, I think we all suspect that it doesn't matter what they do. They can arrest people. And those people are going to be released because you've got Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who's out on May 15th. And then you got Brandon Johnson, who appears to be even worse, that was already making excuses for the rioters. The cops, I have no idea what they've endured, but under Lori Lightfoot's leadership and now under this Brandon Johnson, I can guarantee you that these cops feel totally deflated. They feel like it's probably not even worth getting into a skirmish with rioters unless they see several people or something that is so major where they can guess someone has a knife, a gun, weapon, something that they absolutely need to be involved in. It's sad. It's sad. But you're going to get a lot more instances like this where police officers are just going to depolice. They're like, I'm not getting involved. I'm not getting involved. Especially if they're white. What she didn't share was whether or not these cops were white. Because if they were white, you got a lot of black teens that we saw in that video rioting. If I'm a white cop, I'm just being real. I'm not getting involved. I'm not getting involved. Because the moment I have to swing on a black teenager, or the moment I have to use a taser, or the moment I have to use a baton, or God forbid, have to use my gun, and it's on video, guess what's going to happen? Benjamin Crump is going to be paying a visit to Chicago the next day. And this is what cops have to worry about. Let's continue to roll the tape here, Gabe.
Able to get the couple into her car, then she drove them to the police station.
Got told by the desk sergeant that this was going to happen. It was going to keep happening because Brandon Johnson got elected. That floored me.
An ambulance then took them to the hospital, but the couple was without their phones, wallets, and shoes, which had all been stolen during the attack.
I told the couple that I was going to go home to find them some shoes so that they wouldn't be barefoot for the rest of the night.
Her name is Lenore.
Wow. She gave us shoes, took us home, took us to the hospital.
Her husband as well.
Thank you.
Let's do unto others. And that's a mantra that I live by every day, is just do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
This video is convicting because this is most black people that you come across. Do unto others. Faith-based people. Do unto others. But there's a political disconnect that exists in the black community. There's a political disconnect. See what the story didn't share. You have to read the article. She voted for Lori Lightfoot. I wasn't clear if she voted for Brandon Johnson, but I believe she may have voted for Brandon Johnson. I'm not sure. But this is a faith-based woman. Do unto others. That is biblical. So she has that heart. She has that compassion, which you'll find overwhelmingly in the black community. But there's this political disconnect because blacks are told that whites are out to get them. Well, all these whites are racist. And so these young people hear this stuff coming up and they just go into attack mode. They just go into attack mode. And what happened was this young black man that's in this biracial relationship. Part of what wasn't told on this news outlet story, on that local Fox story, is that they were beating on another woman. He stood up for the other woman, or they started to attack another woman. He stood up and said, "Hey guys, stop. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah." And they started attacking him and his girlfriend. Absolutely astonishing. That lady Lenora Dennis saved that couple's life, in my opinion, but she has no clue that it is her voting that led to that violence. I want you to catch that. All right, now, moving on. That's who the left is. The last couple of things that I want to mention, you have this debt ceiling debacle that's set to occur. Biden is not working with Speaker McCarthy whatsoever. I want to get into that briefly, but before I do, I want to quickly tell you about mypillow.com. Guys, listen, if you want a good night's rest, please go to mypillow.com. Use my name, Carl, C-A-R-L, mypillow.com. Click on the radio listener square, use my name, or give them a call at 800-858-0263. They got the new MyPillow 2.0, and for my listeners, they have an exclusive offer. If you buy one, you get the other free. Now, the new MyPillow 2.0, it has the same patented adjusted feel as the original MyPillow, but now it has this new outer layer that you will absolutely love. It dissipates heat, so your experience sleeping on that pillow, the pillow is softer, it's smoother, and it's cooler. You will love it. All of these products come with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. Not to mention, you're supporting American jobs, right? American manufacturing, and an American patriot in Mike Lindell. Go to mypillow.com. Again, click on that radio listener square. Use my name, Carl, at the top of the page, C-A-R-L, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. All right, real quick. Republicans, Speaker McCarthy, let me see if I can find this, because I highlighted some things that I wanted to talk about. So Speaker Kevin McCarthy has unveiled a plan to, quote unquote, responsibly raise the debt limit. I don't believe that can occur. Inflation is out of control. Our nation's debt is out of control. The dollar is weak. You have our former allies, it seems to be, or our frenemies looking and aligning with China because they're debating on, actually, they're not debating at this point. Many are looking to find something else as the reserve currency rather than the U.S. dollar. So Speaker McCarthy delivered some remarks on the House floor, explaining that the legislation led by the budget chairman, Jody Arrington, seeks to, quote, responsibly raise the debt limit into next year and provide more than $4.5 trillion in savings to American taxpayers. I have a problem with that. I'll be honest. I don't think the Republicans should raise the debt limit at all. And I know everyone, oh my God, is going to be a crisis. There's going to be a crisis. Guys, the federal government shuts down every weekend and nobody gives a damn and nobody cares. All right. Nobody cares. Now, Carl, this is different. This can happen, long term. Listen, I'm not saying that we don't fund the government. We just use the same spending levels as we did last year. That's it. We just use the same spending limit, and we call it a different name. The Republicans are calling it the Limit, Save, Grow Act of 2023. Oh my God, Republicans, can we learn how to message? Can we call this the Save the American Economy Act? Can we call this the Save American Jobs Act of 2023? Can we learn the message like Democrats message? My God, Lord Jesus, help us. Sometimes the messaging makes a big difference. Republicans have got to learn this lesson. Limit, Save, Grow Act of 2023. And now look at Democrats. The Inflation Reduction Act. People were scared their dollar was slipping last year. Democrats come in, Inflation Reduction Act, when it's really a green energy bill. But look at the title. That stuff matters. It is so important. Now, in fairness to Speaker McCarthy, he does want to do some things that I think are okay. To reach that goal, McCarthy said the proposal would limit government spending, return discretionary spending to pre-inflationary levels or to pre-inflationary fiscal year 2022 levels, which there was inflation in 2022, and then limit the growth of spending to 1% per year. Why not cut the growth of spending 1% per year? Our plan ensures adults without dependents earn a paycheck and learn new skills by restoring these common sense measures. He says we can help more Americans earn a paycheck, learn new skills, reduce childhood poverty, and rebuild the workforce. McCarthy said it will also protect and preserve Medicare and Social Security because more people will be paying into it. There's work requirements for welfare. They're proposing that again. The budget proposal or the proposal boasts a long list of cuts, including rescinding unobligated coronavirus funds and repealing, and that needs to go away. For God's sakes, a lot of people are still living on welfare because of COVID, and it's over. And repealing green energy tax credits. There should be no tax credits for green energy. If you want an EV, go get it your doggone self. If you want a solar panel, go get it your doggone self. Those things aren't saving the planet. You know what? The materials that are used in those things are so disastrous and dirty and nasty, and they dig for them and they mine for them in places like China, and we're giving China the advantage over us. Does China care about the air? Does China care about pollution? Does China care about the environment? And that assumes that everything that all of us are doing is actually causing a climate crisis. I don't believe humans have the power to do that. But anyway, that's what's happening. The cuts also outlines crackdowns on student debt relief. Listen, you pay for college, you pay for it your doggone self. I don't need to pay for your education. SNAP benefits, internal revenue. The IRS shouldn't get any new money, in my opinion. SNAP benefits, any SNAP benefits should come with work requirements, but you need to find out who's taking advantage of the system. All right, so they say time is of the essence. As experts, this is hat tip to Breitbart, have warned of a default this summer that could cripple the U.S. economy. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who has been horrible, notified Congress in January that the U.S. had crossed the statutory limit of roughly $31.4 trillion and advised that her agency take extraordinary measures so the government could continue to pay its bills, but only in the short term. No, she shouldn't. That's what Congress is for. We don't need you to take extraordinary measures, Janet Yellen. What we need to do is not raise the debt ceiling, return to 2022 spending levels, and just stay there until hopefully we can kick Joe Biden out of the White House or whomever is going to be running on the Democratic side, or whomever the nominee will be for the Democratic side in 2024, Lord willing. So anyway, but that's the short of the debt ceiling crisis. Joe Biden isn't even coming to the table. What he's going to do is wait to the very last minute, and he's just going to continue to blame Republicans like he has been doing. Now, here's a very disturbing story. Very, very disturbing story. I was going to tell you about the IRS whistleblower that says the Biden administration is interfering in the Hunter tax fraud probe. But honestly, did we expect anything different? So I won't go into detail. I almost think that's self-explanatory. But I do want to share this story with you in closing. And by the way, please, again, follow me on social media, all things social media, The Carl Jackson Show on social media. But this is a very disturbing story. This is a communist story, and I want you to hear this. All right, so Biden looks to punish those with good credit scores by making them fund high-risk mortgages. This was on the tip sheet today. Holy crud. Holy crud. This isn't the Democrat Party. Let me just read the summation that's on the tip sheet. Home buyers with good credit scores will soon encounter a costly surprise. This according to the Washington Times. A new federal rule forcing them to pay higher mortgage rates and fees to subsidize people with riskier credit ratings who are also in the market to buy houses. So what's the first thing that you notice there? A new federal rule. This didn't go through you. This didn't go through Congress. This is the way that it should go. Anything like this happening should go through Congress. But this would never win in Congress. So what does the left do? Screw you people. We're going to do whatever we want to implement our agenda, our left-wing agenda, to fundamentally transform America. So again, home buyers with good credit scores will soon encounter a costly surprise, a new federal rule forcing them to pay higher mortgage rates. So if you've done well, if you've paid your bills on time, if you worked hard to get up your credit score, you're going to be punished. You're going to be punished. They're going to get higher mortgage rates. You're going to get higher mortgage rates and fees to subsidize people with riskier credit ratings who are also in the market to buy houses. So you talk about people that haven't been as good with their money. And don't give me this crap. Well, it's because they're rich. It's because they're poor. Man, I've been poor. I am not rich. I am not rich. I am very far from it, to be frank from you. Not that it's your business, but that is the truth. But I hope to be wealthy. I'm working my butt off because I would like to be wealthy. I'd like to be able to bless my family as well as others and bless the kingdom of God. So I would like to be wealthy. But I tell you one thing that I have done. I've worked my butt off to make sure that I have a good credit score. Why? Because I used to have a very crappy credit score. Because I bought into the nonsense. I moved out of my house when I was away from my dad when I was 15 years old. Came out to Florida, lived with my aunt and uncle for a year before I started living with different friends. So I've been out on my own for quite some time. And I had crappy credit. I had no credit for a while. And then I got crappy credit. I think it was a $400 Dillard's card, I believe was the first thing, right? And then I couldn't pay that on time because I had no clue about paying bills. You know, I would just use cash. And then all of a sudden I got this credit card. And I was like, you know, back then it's like, oh my God, I got $400. Let me go buy some Tommy Hilfiger shirts. I didn't know what the heck I was doing with credit. And then later, that was out here. Then I moved back to California for some time, and I bought a vehicle, which was my second vehicle at the time. Still horrible, right? But I had saved up a lot of money. I had worked at Home Depot at the time. I saved up a lot of money. I was good at saving, so I saved up a lot of money. And I'm talking about I worked over a year, and I just put cash away, and I made a big down payment on a Chevy S10 pickup truck, brand spanking new. I believe it was a 1996 model, brand spanking new. It was beautiful. Didn't have a lot of power, not as much power as I want. Manual stick shift, beige truck, beige interior, or kind of like a golden brown exterior, beige interior. Man, I just thought it was absolutely beautiful, and I loved it at the time. But I didn't know about paying bills. So I paid the first bill, I think it was, and then subsequently my truck ended up getting repoed. Horrible credit. My credit was absolutely destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. Later in life, I started listening to Dave Ramsey. I started getting my life in order. I started paying, even if I couldn't pay more, I started paying bills early. I never paid on time. I paid early. And it took me years. It took me years to build up my credit. And it's not because I'm rich. It's because I started paying attention to my money and I stopped buying stuff that I could not afford to buy. And as a result of that, of getting a higher and better credit score, I was rewarded. And so now I could go out and I could purchase a home, I could purchase a car, and I could get the best interest rates because I learned my lesson when I sucked at paying bills on time, changed my behavior, stopped buying things that I couldn't afford, and then my credit score shot up. But it took years. But now I'm going to be punished. Now I'm going to be punished. And those people that are suffering with bad credit scores aren't going to learn a lesson except that you can be horrible with money and still get rewarded. Because the left is all about control and they're all about votes. That's all they want. It's all about votes. The fee changes will go into effect May 1st as part of the Federal Housing Finance Agency's push for affordable housing, and they will affect mortgages originating at private banks across the country. The federally backed home mortgage companies, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, will enact the loan level price adjustments, or LLPAs, as they're called. Mortgage industry specialists say home buyers with credit scores of 680 or higher will pay, for example, about $40 per month more on a home loan of $400,000. 680. 680 is an okay score. It's not even great. It's an okay score. Home buyers who make down payments of 15% to 20% will get socked with larger fees. This is the Communist Party of America, today's Democrat Party. I just want you to understand who they are. That's what I wanted to do this entire podcast. I want you to understand who you're up against. A Communist Party. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Again, please subscribe wherever you go to get your podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Carl Jackson Show, which is on YouTube. We're also on Rumble. You can also find the podcast, thecarljacksonshow.com. Please follow me on social media. If you're on Facebook, you can find me there. If you're on Twitter, I'm at The Carl Jackson Show. If you're on Instagram, you can find me there. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in. And until next time, do not grow weary doing good. And God bless you.